We're here for part two of this video, which I haven't come up with a title for, but it is in response as it's a follow-up video to my initial video that was called Living Stealth in a Self-Storage Unit Not. So this is part two. Question number 8 that I received, I had received some questions from someone who saw the video. There were too many questions to put in the comments section, so he sent me the questions via email, so I'm answering them on video. Were there any memorable or bad messes you cleaned up? Now, there are always messes to clean up when you're working for a self-storage facility. There's all types of people that you deal with, so there are all types of spills. I've got them listed here because there's no way I was going to remember them all. The type of spills I've dealt with were spilled and splattered coffee, soft drinks, beer, paint, liquid laundry detergent, liquid ceramic. There's also other spills that weren't liquid, like spilled potting soil, bird seed, powdered laundry detergent, flour, etc. It goes on and on and on. These are all spills that customers create and walk away from. As far as the powdered stuff, you spill and walk away from it, it's a hassle, I'll clean it up. The liquid stuff is what got me the most, because at the first facility I worked at, it was an old factory building with old wooden floors, especially the 4th floor. Had the old factory floorboards with these 1/4 to 1/2 inch spaces between the boards. So whatever fell on the floor went in those grooves between the boards and had to be not only just swept up, but vacuumed up. Now you can't mop on that floor because the old wooden floors are unfinished, and there's so many splinters and pieces of board sticking up that to even try to mop with a mop head, it would just jam and get stuck and caught on the raw wood. And the other thing with about liquid spills was that because they were wooden floors, they would go down. It would leak down to other floors. Now, depending on where the spill was, the leak might just go from hallway to hallway. But each floor wasn't set up the same way. So what may be a hallway upstairs might be a unit, a storage unit on the floor below. There might be a storage unit right underneath that hallway on the floor below. So liquid spills, if they weren't cleaned up immediately and reported immediately, there was a high probability that they would leak right down to somebody else's unit and could have irreparably damaged another customer's belongings. And some of those are treasured belongings, because there are people there who have collectibles. And collectibles could be collectible newspapers, magazines, comic books, photographs. There are people who have artwork. There are businesses who rent units and put all their files in the cardboard file boxes in those units. So when liquid comes through, it can do a lot of damage. People don't think that way. They're like, oh, I spilled something on the floor. Let's get out of here, Mildred. Or whatever. And they take off. Somebody's going to make fun of the fact that I said Mildred, so whatever. One of my most memorable messes was left behind by somebody living in a unit. They were living in a unit. I'll address this person a little further down as to what we did with him. But when I did go into the unit to clean out the unit, there were 2 things that happened. One was I found these soda cans lined up against the wall, and they were half filled with liquid. And I'm like, look at this. If all this soda had spilled, it would have gone down to the unit down below him and caused some damage to their belongings. So there were about 8 cans, 9 cans, something like that. So there was no way I was going to carry them all together, and I didn't have a box to take them downstairs with. So what I did was I took my fingers and I stuck them in the tops of the cans. And where you pop it open, and I carried them down to the restroom downstairs. I dumped the first one out, and when I dumped the second one out, I realized the liquid, although it was in a can that was a different flavor, the liquid was the same color. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, this is urine. And I took a whiff, and sure enough, it was old stale urine. And there's me carrying them downstairs with my fingers in the tops of those cans, no rubber gloves. Rookie mistake. Rookie mistake. No rubber gloves. I immediately had to check my hands for cuts to make sure that my skin hadn't been compromised, because that could have been a biohazard. I don't know if this person had HIV. I don't know if this person has hepatitis. I don't know what this person could have had. So if I had gotten cut and this person had something that could have been transferred to me through a cut, I could be on medication for the rest of my life right now, or I could be in the hospital, or who knows what now, because this was several years ago. So here's another reason why we don't let people live in their units, because they can create a biohazard. Now, this gentleman also had been smoking in his unit. Fire hazard. There's another reason why we don't let people live in their units. We can't trust people living in their units to do the right thing. And I know everybody wants to believe that we live in a world where people living in their units are going to do the right thing and they're not going to cause any problems, and on and on and on and on. You got to give these people a break. No, because this person is the prime example as to one of the reasons why we don't let people live in their units. Now, this gentleman had an ashtray, and it was overflowing with cigarette ash and cigarette butts. This ashtray was sitting on a cardboard box. Now, had there been a live ash, had there been a live head from his cigarette that landed on that cardboard box that he didn't notice, it could have caused a fire, and I could have been without a job. There could have been hundreds of people who lost the contents of their unit. This is why we don't let people live in storage units. So I went in and I had to clean all that up. And of course, I don't think he was officially moved out yet, and I was able to put notes in the system about that before he was initially moved out. So another memorable mess that we had was a customer who was disposing of white paint. Now, she put the paint cans in a plastic trash bag, and she didn't carry the trash bag because I guess it was too heavy. She didn't bother getting a flat cart that she could put the bag on and then just roll it. She actually dragged the bag across the 4th floor, which halfway through, the scraping caused a hole to appear, and the paint started leaking out because the paint can was open. So she left along the unfinished wooden floor a paint trail that led right into the elevator. There was paint in the elevator, and then there was paint when she got down to the 1st floor, from the elevator through the hallways out to the driveway, which then caused another hole to open up in the bag. So now there's 2 streams of white paint all across the driveway, all the way up to the dumpster. That was another memorable one, because I had to get on my hands and knees, because I can't mop it up on the 4th floor. It can't be mopped. I had to get on my hands and knees with my all-purpose cleaner and a scrub brush and try to scrub it all out of the floorboards, which didn't completely come out because those floorboards were unfinished, and they're like 100 years old, and they were so thirsty for moisture that they actually sucked the paint into the board. So it was difficult to get it all out. I never got it all out. Another memorable spill was when a customer spilled liquid ceramic. There is such a thing as liquid ceramic. This person spilled liquid ceramic, and the thing with liquid ceramic is when it dries, it hardens. And those floorboards were so thirsty for moisture that it was sucking all the moisture out of it, leaving the ceramic behind. So by the time I even helped that customer and then got back to the situation at hand, it was already hardening on those old wood floors. So I had a difficult time getting that out. Plus, it leaked through the floorboards, down to the hallway below. From there, it leaked from the 3rd floor hallway down to the 2nd floor hallway. So it went from the 4th floor down to all the way down to the 2nd floor, which goes to show you how spills can affect the safety of people, because there could have been individuals walking underneath those floors, getting dripped on and slipping on the stuff on the floor. And it could have also, instead of spilled into a hallway, had it happened in another hallway on the 4th floor where there were units underneath it, it could have gone into somebody else's unit and then just hardened and stuck on whatever they had in their unit. I'm sorry if my eyes are wandering, but I'm going from like the camera on my phone to looking at myself on my phone, and I've got to break out of that habit. Let's see, other messes I can remember. Let's see, one time someone walked around in a particular section of the building eating an orange or eating 2 oranges and just throwing the peels on the floor, tossing the peels on top of the units, just walking around the whole section, just leaving orange peels here and there. There was a customer who I guess loved sunflowers, because I would find sunflower seed shells spit out in the elevator and spit out all over the floor as they walked to their unit, hung around and walked around, and then went back to the elevator and left. So it would be all over the place, and you can't leave that stuff around because it can attract mice. You don't want to feed mice. You want mice to go for the bait stations and not for the stuff on the floor, not for food. Let's see. There was a customer whose child used to go around, and we used to have these red tags that we put on the units with a red lock if the customer was delinquent in their payment. But we had a customer whose child used to go around and either rip them off, just go down the aisle ripping them all off and leaving them on the floor, or he'd rip them in half and leave it on the floor, which was always a treat when I came upstairs and found that stuff laying all over the place. I not only had to pick up the mess, but I had to replace all the tags. And there are customers who have thrown bags of trash, coffee cups, everything like that on top of units just to get rid of it. Instead of bringing it down or taking it with them, they'll just throw it up on top of the unit and leave it there. Even furniture. They'll throw pieces of furniture up there as well. So you see, there's always something to clean up. There's always something to do. Next question. What happens to people's items when they're evicted and couldn't keep them? That all depends. If the person's homeless, they don't have that much stuff in their unit to begin with. They come in, whatever they carry in, they carry out. If they do have some extra things, they can usually find some place, a friend or somebody to hold on to it for them. The reason why it's in the storage unit is because they've rented out the storage unit and they're living in there. And so when they get evicted, everything has to go. Whatever doesn't go, if it's not trash, then we get, it's all going to be thrown away anyway. So whatever isn't trash, if we find, a notebook and some pens and stuff like that in with the stuff that he or she has left there, we're allowed to take things like that. As long as we bring it to the dumpster first to show that it's trash, and then take the stuff, we're allowed to do that. But usually anybody who's homeless takes everything with them, or whatever they leave behind is generally trash anyway. Now, there are instances where people abandon their units. They can't pay for their units. We don't have an auction scheduled. They'll sign paperwork that say they've abandoned the unit. That's it. What we do then is once that lock is taken off that unit and that unit door opens, we become professional pickers. All that stuff needs to get thrown away. So before that happens, we go through, we look and decide what we do and don't want to keep for our own personal use or to use at the facility. There are times when I found tools and things like that and I've brought them home. And there are times when I found tools and I used them at the facility because we didn't have those types of tools there and we needed them to do our job. So instead of purchasing them and using company money, we just kept what we found in there. Now, of course, we'd have to bring everything. The rule is you bring stuff to the dumpster before you keep it. So Everything was considered trash in there, so whatever we wanted, we took. Whatever we didn't want, if it could be used by another customer, if it was in really good condition, we put it in the reuse section. At least in the second facility I was at. The first facility I worked at didn't have a reuse section, so it would go outside along the wall, along the outside of the building, and the customers were encouraged to pick through anything that they wanted. Whatever they didn't want ended up going in the dumpster. At the second facility I worked at, there was a reuse section, and we were able to throw stuff in the reuse section. So if anybody walked past there and saw something they want, they could just take it. Everything else that couldn't be reused or recycled, we threw away in the dumpster. There was also auctions. Auctions occurred several times a year, and whatever units did not sell, we were able to go into those units and do the same thing we do with abandoned units. Become pickers, go through, pick what we want, throw everything else away. This next question, did fugitives or people on probation or parole ever sleep in their storage unit? And there's another question that says, was anyone who slept in their unit a frequent criminal offender? I'm going to answer both these questions at the same time. We don't know the legal status of anybody who's moving their things into a unit. The only time we're ever going to find that out is if something happens and the police show up and they need to enter a unit, which happened one time. Somebody was accused of theft, and the police did enter, sought permission and entered the unit and found stolen items. Then there was also another incident that I'll get to in another question below. Well, no, I'll discuss it here. We had an instance where a customer requested a unit the furthest away from the door, furthest away from the elevator for his privacy. Red flag. Then he made an offhanded comment that he was going to have a friend put his obituary in the paper so everyone would think he was dead. Red flag. Right off the bat, we're thinking he's either trying to avoid some very nasty people, or he's trying to make the police think that he's dead so that they stop looking for him. Either way, none of our business. Our business is to rent that unit. He hasn't said he's going to be doing anything illegal in there. That's fine. A few days later, I catch him living in his unit. There's an extension cord running from the hallway underneath his door. There's a light on inside. I knock, knock, knock. No answer. I lift up the door, and he's sleeping on the floor. I warned him that he was not allowed to sleep in there. I told my general manager. My general manager warned him he was not allowed to sleep in there. Now, he didn't get an eviction. He got 2 warnings. We were lenient with him. He got 2 warnings. But because he couldn't live in there anymore, he disappeared. We have no idea where he went. Wouldn't answer his phone. Wouldn't answer the letters sent to him. His mom, who he was living with at the time, had no idea where he was. Eventually, it was deemed an abandoned unit. Now, this is the same gentleman who I went in and cleaned those urine cans out of and the cigarette butts and ashes that were overflowing that could have caused the fire. Same gentleman, same unit. So he, as far as we know, he wasn't a criminal or an offender, but we don't know. We have no idea. We don't have that information. So either, like I said, he was either running away from some nasty people or he was running away from the police, one or the other. Was there other illegal activity happening when people slept there? Not that I'm aware of. I don't know what happens at night. I'm not privy to that. I don't look at the swipe scans in the morning. That's not my job. It's a general manager's job. I don't review videotapes. It's not my job. It's a general manager's job. I was never made aware that there was something else nefarious going on during the night. So as far as that's concerned, I have no idea. Only the general manager would know about that. All I know is we had a good reputation of keeping an eye on customers, and I think that reputation got around. So I think that's why a lot of stuff that could have happened at the center didn't happen at the center. So, if word gets around that you're letting people sleep in units, if word gets around that you can go there and smoke some weed, they don't care or whatever, then you're going to get a lot of that happening, at the facility. But if you get word around that says, "Oh, you can't get away with anything over there. There's always some guy walking around the floor, and he's always trying to keep an eye on you, like make him believe he's doing some work or whatever next to your unit when he's keeping an eye on you and blah blah blah." They're less likely to try to get away with something, and they'll go try to get away with that someplace else. So that's why I say electronic surveillance is good, but it's good to have somebody on the floor. Did people ever put stolen merchandise in their storage unit? We have no way. We have no way of knowing whether whether the items in someone's unit is stolen or not. But there was an incident I can recall where someone had a stolen flat screen TV from their unit. Someone broke into their unit and put that TV in their own unit. Now, I probably shouldn't say this, but if you have a unit in that building and you're bringing something downstairs on a cart and you're taking it away, we're assuming you took it out of your own unit. If you've stolen it from somebody else's unit, we don't know. How do we know? Unless we heard you breaking into the unit or witnessed the theft. Anything that goes down out of that building on a flat cart in a car or truck or whatever, we're assuming it's yours. Take that for what it's worth, but I'm not telling people to break into I'm not trying to give people ways to break into units and steal things. I'm just saying the question is, did people ever put stolen merchandise in their storage unit? Yes. But also, I'm pretty sure people have taken stolen items out of the building without us even knowing. Let's see. Oh yeah, we discovered that the TV, the police, and the staff that was on at the time, I wasn't there at the time when the police came, did spot the item in somebody else's unit, and that's how they were able to catch the person who stole it. There was also an incident where there were several units that were broken into, and they were all broken into on the same aisle. One of the customers who complained said that he had his large living room size flat screen TV stolen from him. Right after the incident, he moved out. He said he had moved everything out that he needed to move out. He was all set. He left. When I went back to the unit, there was still stuff in the unit. So I'm assuming, we're both assuming, the general manager and I are both assuming, well, he came to the desk and said he was all set. He had nothing else to move. He was done. He was out. It was time for his, files to be closed. So I went just to go check the condition of the unit. It wasn't my floor, so it wasn't my unit to clean, but I was curious. We always check the condition of the unit after somebody's moved out. So I went to go check the condition of that unit. There was furniture and stuff in there. And as I'm looking around, sifting through the stuff, because now I've become a picker, because everything's going to be thrown into the dumpster, I found a pair of bolt cutters. I immediately sent the picture to my general manager and said, we got a problem here. We've got a whole hallway full of units who have all had their locks cut off. Not all, but the ones who had padlocks on them had their locks cut off. And this guy had his lock cut off, but he's got bolt cutters in here. So our mind immediately deduces that this guy cut those locks, stole what he wanted to steal, moved out immediately, and then put a false claim in that he had a TV stolen out of his unit. Well, what we did was we sent the information to the insurance company. This guy said he had his TV stolen, yet he had bolt cutters inside of his unit, and there are other units that had their locks cut. What happened with his claim? I have no idea. That's between the insurance company and him. But things like that do happen. So stolen stuff in their unit? Yeah, he probably had stolen stuff in his unit. So, which he immediately got rid of and immediately moved out so he didn't get caught. This is where I'm going to end this second part because it's getting a little bit long again. And I'm going to now go to part 3. So I hope that you click on part 3 in this video series so I can answer a few more questions from this gentleman and give you a little bit more information of where we're coming from as a business as opposed to a customer trying to live in their unit. So I'll put the link to part 1 and to the original video in the description below. I hope that you hit the like button and that you hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell icon so that you can be notified when I post a new video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in a minute.